Hey guys, welcome back to Butlers Customs. So in this episode, I'm building a 1951 AJS. This is going to be a full custom build, but still paying homage to the original style AJS 500cc motorcycle. So this bike was actually brought into me by a lovely guy named Ben. This is a family bike that's been around for generations, and it was used on the farm and ridden to the pub, so I was told at age 15, and some funny stories like that. So I'm pretty pumped to get into this build. We're going to customize it, but also try and keep it sort of as close to original as we can, but tweak things a little bit by changing out the wheels and changing out all the Whitworth threads to metric, so it's a lot easier to replace things in the future. And we're going to modernize things a little bit and change the decals on the tank, etc. But you'll see all that throughout the build, so don't forget to follow along. Like and subscribe if you haven't already to see all our future builds. And you can jump on and check out all our previous builds as well. If you want any of our merch, you can jump on to our website, link below, to see all our merch, parts and accessories and more. So anyway guys, let's get into this. Look forward to it. Let's go. I've sprayed everything on this bike with WD-40 because it was so locked up. I've just had to beat the shit out of this with a rubber mallet, and then we're going to get these bars off to make it easier. You can see here, it's just fully corroded. I don't know if that bolt's snapped off yet, but bars will come off. These are going to get sandblasted and then polished back to original. As long as we have no cracks through here. I'm hoping that the crack is just in the black paint, but we'll find out once we sandblast it. And now I've got better access to get the bolts off on the tank. So keep dismantling, let's go. Motor is almost out. I've got to get this bracket here off, but I've got the oil tank off, all the rear frame, exhaust, etc. So back to it, let's keep going. Okay, I've got all front and rear end off now. I'm about to remove the motor. So all of the bolts on this are Whitworth, so they're their own fucking entity. They've got different heads on the bolts and obviously finer threads and stuff like that. So I'm going to, as many bolts as I possibly can, drill and tap them out and change everything to metric, because this is not going back to original, so it doesn't matter. I don't need to worry about replacing the bolts with Whitworth ones. Next step is to pull this motor out of the frame, get the frame sandblasted, and then I can make the modifications that are needed to take the new modern shocks that are going onto it, and anything that needs to come off, like these old rear footrests, they'll come off as well. But before I do, I'm going to throw this in the car and take it to the car wash and give it a good pressure wash, bring it home, and then rip that motor out. Rightio guys, so back from the car wash and I've degreased it all, clean it right up, so now I can see the bolt heads that I've got to undo to get that motor out. And then I'll take you outside here. I have just pulled the axle out of this wheel. So here's the parts down here. And what I had to do, it's a weird setup, but it's got a keyway in both sides. So I actually had to use my blowtorch and heat up the other end to get this nut off. And I'm gonna have to do the same here. I've managed to get this one end off, which is lucky because I could slide the axle out of the wheel, but now I need to heat this up and try and get this bolt and spacer off. And then our brake plates off. The brakes are pretty good, but obviously we're gonna replace all that. So my next step is to get this tire off this rim, so I can potentially try and get these spokes out in one piece so I can get new ones made. Otherwise I'm gonna have to cut them and then give them to the spoke joint in 2 pieces, but let's try and get this tyre off. So I thought I'd show everyone, I'm pulling the front hub apart so I can polish this center rib section, and then we're going to paint the rest black. This is a 1951 AJS, so what would you expect to be in here? Certainly not a fucking wasp's nest and bloody spider eggs. I've never seen anything like it. It's pretty wild. So this is what I'm working with, but it's all good. We'll make it look $1 million. I've got it all cleaned out, but these spokes I've cut off. These are rusted in. So this is the back of all the spokes. I'm going to now have to go through, spray some WD-40 on everything, and then let them sit for a while, and hopefully I can tap these things out with a hammer. Reasonably easy. We'll see how we go. I'm going to spray some on these bolts too, because these are going to have to come undone. So we may even have to put some heat into them like I did with this cover plate. We've got this nut that drips on, holds this cover plate on. So I've had to heat that up. All right, this tank, as you can see inside here, is pretty bad. So you can see all the rust down the bottom there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clean this tank out and put a tank liner kit in it. But the first thing I'm going to do is put some warm water in it. And I've got all these Tech screws here. I'm going to slosh them around, loosen up all the rust on the inside to make sure I can get as much of that flaky rust off on the inside as possible. Then I'll flush that out and I'll put my tank liner kit through it, and hopefully we can save this tank. Because it's not too bad underneath and the outside's pretty good, so I didn't see any leaks or anything like that, so I reckon I can save this. Let's get started. I learnt this trick off a friend of mine who's about 70 years old, I think, and he has restored bikes his entire life, and he also is a motorbike mechanic his entire life, and he's got a collection of about 60 motorcycles. So I thought he's the man to listen to, and I've tried this 1 million times and it works a treat. Alright, let's shake the shit out of this thing, put some warm water in it, and see what we can get to come out of it. See all that flaky rust in there, so that no chemical's going to get off on its own without scratching at the metal. So let's keep going. So as you can see here, we used to have knee pads on the side of this AJS tank, and there was a metal plate that bolted on to these 2 threads. and then your rubber knee pad actually clamped onto the plate. So we're doing away with those. So I've taken it all off and I'm just about to weld up these holes. I've done the other side. As you can see, she's smoking. So yeah, I'll weld them up and then I'll get the whole tank blasted, and then I'll put my tank liner kit through, and then we'll start paint prep. So I've got all the shit out of there now. So you can see that there's no big chunky flakes of rust in there anymore. A little bit in there in this section here, but it's just more gunk than anything. Just build up grime and old fuel that goes like honey. So my next step is to put the tank liner kit through it, which is a 3-stage process. So it's got an acid wash and then another rinse before you put the final liner in. So let's get this thing looking like brand new. All right guys, we've got everything back from the blaster. Everything's blasted and etch primed. So now it is time to put the tank liner kit through. All right guys, so the tank is now fully lined. I'll get a torch and show you down in there. You can see how it sort of almost looks like it's wet down in there. If I can get that torch to sit in the right spot, there we go. So that shiny wet look is actually the resin, which is the last stage. So I will leave that now and no fuel will get put in that tank for a good 7 days ideally, which is fine because my next stage is to start repairing that tank and prime and paint it. So that's where I'm at. Let's get into that. As you can see, there's not many dents in this at all because when I wipe it, it's just literally wiping straight over the metals, which means I don't actually have that many repairs in this, and 90% of this filler is going to be rubbed out of it. So you'll be left with it almost back to metal. But I like to layer it on pretty thick the first time to save me having to come back and do multiple layers of filler. I'd rather just put it on thick the first time. It's got almost no damage to the tank at all. There's some minor little dents and stuff along the sides here. Just a few little lows, but to save me filling every individual low with filler, I just wipe the whole tank and then I'm gonna sand it down. So I've got the filler on this side now, all wiped in. Now I'm gonna do the opposite side and then we'll start sanding. I've just started sanding it down, so you can see here, one side's guide coated, the other side is near finished sanding. So I'll keep sanding, get this thing done, and then we'll start paint. Alright, so the tank's all painted. I've only got 2 coats clear on it at the moment because I'm going to sand that down with 800 and then I'm going to give it 3 more low coats and then I'm going to sand that down again, put my pinstripes on the side and then give it a few more coats All right, so I've got the frame back from sandblasting. I've primed it all, and you can see here I've put filler in the legs here because there's pitting from the age of the bike, obviously being so old after it's been blasted. So I've also done one coat on the tank and just found a few little low spots here, so I filled them up with some fine filler, and then I'm going to reprime and repaint that tank. And as you can see here, I'm just trying to fill in all the pitting that was in the frame, and then it's time to paint. So I'm getting really bloody close, just a fair bit of sanding left, but I'll smash through it, and then I'll show you when it's all done and painted. I got the tank back after having the gold decals put on, and they were fucked. So 10 mil out either side, absolutely horrendous. So I've had to start again from scratch, paid the bill, and now I have to fucking redo it. So anyway, one side's done. So if you can't get something done right, you gotta do it yourself. Alright guys, the tank is now done. I'm going to cut and buff this one time before it goes on the bike. I have to paint black around the edges of these badges and stuff, but it's basically sorted. Fuel cap is re-chromed, and we are good to go with the tank. So, we were going to film this video in one complete video start to finish, but it's sort of dragging out. We don't want to bore everyone, so we're going to split it up into 3 sections. Thank you to everyone for watching this video. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, so you can come back and check out parts 2 and 3 of the AJS video. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers guys.